Precious Achiuwa was having an absolutely terrible season with the Toronto Raptors. Not only were his numbers down across the board, but his role on the team seemed to have disappeared. He just seemed lost in Coach Darko's .5 offensive system. He was confused and he was playing with zero confidence in himself and his abilities. Precious was then traded to the Knicks in a deal with OG Anunoby, and he really struggled to make any sort of positive impact. In his first 10 games with the Knicks, he played just 12 minutes per game, put up a horrible 3 points and 3 rebounds, shooting 44% from the field. For a guy like Precious, that's just unacceptable. It looked like he was on his way out of the league and was going to do it riding the pine in New York. But then the Knicks got hit hard with the injury bug, with both OG and Julius Randle being out for an extended period, and Precious was forced to play really big minutes. And I think surprising to a lot of people, he really balled out. Since January 20th, Precious has been playing some of, if not the best basketball of his NBA career. He's averaging 11 points, 9 rebounds, a block and a half, and a steal, while shooting 59% on twos. But the bigger shocker to me is that he's playing 33 minutes per game and is like a key rotational member. But what has changed to turn Precious Achiuwa from a throw-in piece in the OG deal to a key player for a Knicks team trying to stay afloat with all their injuries? First, we have to look at Achiuwa's role with the Raptors. In Toronto, Achiuwa was overtaxed and given too much room on the offensive side of the ball. Part of this was the team hoping to develop him, and part of it was the team needed him to do it. They just didn't have a lot of guys, and Precious was kind of one of those main guys. Precious was allowed to grab rebounds and go coast to coast with it. This almost never led to points. Achiuwa has an okay handle in the open court, but once there's a guy in front of him, it becomes shaky and he looks lost. I think Precious Achiuwa with 2 or more dribbles is one of the worst offensive players in the league. He just doesn't know how to create for himself, which is fine, but on the Raptors, it really showed up. Achiuwa in Toronto was also asked to space the floor from a big man position and played a lot more on the perimeter. While he's had decent stretches shooting the 3-ball, he's just not a good shooter, and by playing him in that role, it really took away from some of the things that he does best, which is crash the offensive glass at an elite level. And with Toronto, he just couldn't do it because he was always on the 3-point line and he just couldn't show those skills. He's a great rebounder and a great athlete. Lastly, Achiuwa had to play for the Raptors, and what I mean by this is they just didn't have bodies and players to take his role. So when he was playing bad or he was unfocused on the defensive end, he was still out there because he had to be, which let those bad habits sink in more and more. And while I think Achiuwa was decent to good for the Raptors defensively this year, with his kind of lackadaisical attention and just having to play, I think he really slipped on that end, and Coach Darko just didn't really have any options to take him out of the game. Now, how has Achiuwa gone from a guy who was overtaxed offensively and unfocused defensively to a great two-way player for the Knicks? First, I think it really comes down to who's running the ship. Coach Darko is a good coach, but for a guy like Achiuwa who needs a clear-cut role, he wasn't a good coach. Tibbs is the perfect type of coach for him. And I said this as soon as he was traded. Tibbs is a guy who isn't afraid to bench you if you mess up or step outside of your role. Doesn't matter how many minutes you're playing or how many minutes you have been playing up until that point. And I think Achiuwa really needed a coach like that. With the Raps, he's got away from what made him an NBA player. His rebounding skills, his speed mixed with his size, and his elite athleticism. Coupled that in with his elite defensive skills, that's what made Achiuwa an NBA player. And Tibbs has got him focused on those things again. Like I said, with the Raptors, Achiuwa was allowed to bring up the ball in transition and try to create for himself or others. With the Knicks, Achiuwa is never doing that. He's only given the ball in transition after somebody has already brought it across the halfway line or has driven all the way to the rim. He's there to clean up those mistakes or be an outlet valve and finish those types of plays in New York. While in Toronto, he was kind of expected to create in those types of situations. In Toronto, Achiuwa was taking and missing way more threes than he is in New York. Tibbs has pretty much completely cut the 3-ball out of Achiuwa's shot diet and made him a pick and roll man. Not a guy who sometimes rolls and sometimes pops like he was in Toronto, but a guy who attacks the rim hard every single possession. Tibbs also has him in the dunker spot more often, which has led to easy baskets for him off of Brunson drives or cleaning up the offensive glass. The Knicks love to crash the offensive glass, which is one of Achiuwa's best skills, and he's being told to do that pretty much every single play, which is getting him even more easy looks, which is helping to build his confidence back up. And confidence is really so important for NBA players, and especially young guys like Achiuwa. After being traded, he must have been very shaken up. He already got traded once to Toronto, and now he's getting traded again, and he struggled. So by putting him in situations to build those confidence back up, get easy points, it helps him re-amp on the defensive end of the ball as well. And here are also just some numbers to back this up. In Toronto, Achiuwa was scoring just 0.9 points per offensive rebound, which is absolutely horrible. With the Knicks, he is scoring 1.2 points per offensive rebound, which is elite. In transition with the Raptors, Achiuwa just scored 0.97 points per possession, which is once again really bad. With the Knicks, he's at 1.37 points per possession, which is just absolutely elite. Defensively, Achiuwa has to be focused on the Knicks because Tibbs will pull him if he's not. And I truly think Achiuwa is one of the best 1 through 5 defenders in the league when he's locked in. He has the foot speed to stay step to step with guards and wings, and he has the strength and size to hold the zone against power forwards and bigs. And he's bouncy enough to block and contest a lot of shots at the rim in weak side help protection or when he gets beat by a quicker guard. I don't think Tibbs has unlocked or made Achiuwa better defensively, but I think he has him a lot more focused and more confidence in his role on that end, which has led him to being more impactful. I know I'm giving Tibbs a lot of credit for Precious's turnaround, but Achiuwa deserves as much credit as anyone. He has fully bought into his role on the Knicks and doesn't seem to have complained one bit about it. I've never sold my Precious Achiuwa stock, and I'm probably one of his biggest believers, so I could be a bit biased here. But when you watch him on the Knicks, you can see how impactful and how great he can be on both ends of the ball. The Raptors were just a bad fit, and fit is almost more important than talent for NBA role players. And with a better fit, Achiuwa is thriving. Side note, everyone involved in the Raptors and Knicks trade is doing better than ever. OG is finally getting his praise as one of the best defenders in the league and a true game changer. RJ looks like he could be a great third option and maybe even an all-star one day. And IQ looks like a great point guard to build with. And Achiuwa is thriving more than ever. I don't really know about Malachi Flynn, but like he's in Detroit doing his own thing. I think Achiuwa is truly reinventing himself as an NBA player under Coach Thibodeau, and he's doing it in a situation where it's needed. Yes, the Knicks are starting to finally get healthier again, and his role is going to be reduced by just showing that he can step up into those bigger roles, much build a lot of confidence in himself as well as the coaching staff, because they know if someone else gets hurt or gets into foul trouble, you can trust Achiuwa to go out there and give you 10 and 10 pretty much while playing great defense and playing very, very connective team basketball. Of course, he still has some other areas to improve on, and he's a young player, but seeing this growth under Tibbs and this kind of new role for himself, I think is going to do wonders for Precious long term, and I just can't wait to see what he does next. I'm a big fan of him, and I think he's a great guy, so it's just exciting to see him do well. Thanks for watching and have a great day.